Hello, it's Carla the Cosmic Crone. Good afternoon. And I've come in on Monday to give the Divine Feminine Astrology reading for the full moon in Sagittarius, which happens to be a penumbral lunar eclipse. And I'm doing it early because the astrology is going on all week. It's an eclipse season, and we are in extraordinary times, even more so than they were the last new moon. And so I just felt like I wanted to be here and offer you what the moon is saying, what the planets are saying, what the divine feminine is saying. And I'll also take a quick look at the chart of the moment. Now, here's the funny thing. I get over here and I have the charts for my client, not the charts of the full moon. I left that in the house. So I had to look them up again on my computer. So it's all right. It'll work. The chart hasn't changed since I looked at it at the house an hour ago. What an extraordinary, extraordinary chart. Well, let's start. Let's just start with the basics. The sun is at 15:30. Okay, the full moon happens on Thursday at 3:12 p.m. So at about an hour about this time of day. So that's 3:12 p.m. Eastern time where I'm living. And Thursday, June 5th. So here's what's going on. The sun will be at 1534 Gemini. The moon will be at 1534 Sagittarius. And the moon will be conjunct the Great Attractor. It's quite possible you never heard of the Great Attractor unless you've listened to me or some other astrologers who actually follow the Great Attractor. The Great Attractor is one of the things that gives Sagittarius, the sign, its spiritual signature. Sagittarius is considered to be the sign of spiritual growth and development, of spiritual presence and awareness, as opposed to religion, because religion can also be Capricorn because it's organized and institutional, the so-called church. In Sagittarius is where you would have religion and the church intersecting, but also those of us who don't do church, those of us our church is in the woods, our church is orgasmic, our church is the sacred fire, our church is the dirt, the garden where I have been. So the full moon is conjunct the Great Attractor. In fact, it will roll over the exact conjunction with the Great Attractor an hour or two before it makes the exact opposition to the sun. The Great Attractor is a point somewhere in the universe outside of our galaxy that is attracting all of the galaxies in our sector to it. And as such, it has a feminine quality because it is drawing in, it is attracting, it is receiving. And it also is vast and mysterious. We don't know what it is. We know where it is in our sky, but we don't know where it is in space-time. In fact, it is probably not in space-time at all. Barbie, thank you. I will take a look. It would be helpful if I had your natal chart to look at, but I'll see if I listen carefully and see if you hear something. right now, this is about the spiritual aspects of your world and your life. This full moon is tapping into the vast... Hi, Elisheva. It's good to see you. It's been a long time. The full moon is tapping into this vastness. So I think of the great attractor as feminine, as being one of the divine feminine aspects in the chart. And when I do divine feminine astrology readings for people, I look and see what's going on with the great attractor. And it's also so big and so vast and so mysterious that it is like God, the ground of being type of God. And so this full moon, which is eclipsing, is tapping into that energy. Now, what's the moon we associate with emotion, and full moon can be a time when our emotions are really on the rise. They are fraught. And right now the collective is fraught. So I believe that most of what we see, always what we see in a chart, is open to the interpretation we choose to give it. In other words, we can put on the filter, we can put on our glasses, and we can see things as opportunities, or we can see things as disasters. And Barbie, this might be helpful to you. This is an opportunity to tap into the deep spiritual information and sustenance and connection of what is going on in our time. And things have escalated. We were, the virus, it caused us to separate from each other. It caused us to fear. It caused us to sicken. It caused some of us to die. And then, and it affected some of us more than others, in the sense of there are entire groups of people who did not have the privilege of staying home because they were either in essential jobs or they simply couldn't afford it, or some combination of the two. There were many people who did not have resources. There were many people who got sicker, and I'm talking about people of color, people who are working in the healthcare field, or the store clerks. I mean, who ever knew that a store clerk, a grocery stocker, would be putting their life on the line for the rest of us to make sure that we can go and buy food and things that we need? That in itself turns things around, and that is a wake-up call of what are we taking for granted in our lives? What is privilege taking for granted in our lives? So there's that going on, and then the police brutality keeps going. It doesn't let up. And the interesting thing, you have heard me say in my various live streams, and usually in astrology readings, how one of the dangerous fallouts of this stay-at-home order is that we cannot gather. And as I have watched things unfold over the past 3 or 4 months, political things in the United States and elsewhere, but just in my own country, I've said this is really a problem that people can't gather for ceremony, for ritual, for prayer, and for political action. Well, what happened this weekend? People's outrage and pain was much, much stronger than their fear, their, you might say, common sense. And this has been a wake-up call for me. All we have to do is care enough. And things like a virus seem much less important. And yes, I saw people with masks. The pictures I saw, many people were wearing masks or bandanas. They were being aware that there is this other thing going on at the same time, and they need to at least minimize how they're exposing other people, because we all know that the mask is what we do to keep our own virus aerosols away, to minimize the impact our breath and our voice and our respiration has on the people around us. So all of that was going on today anyway. And I think this is really connected. This is connected to this full moon and all the other things that are happening this week. Because I'm going to quickly open up the chart of the moment. Yeah, here's the chart of the moment, which I looked at like 10 minutes ago. And we have Mars and Nessus in an exact conjunction in Pisces. Mars and Nessus. So Mars is masculine energy, ferocity. You can see it as warlike. It is warrior energy. It is fighting energy. It can trigger aggression. But it also can take all of that energy and be warrior energy. And my understanding of warrior energy is that warrior energy is always, always fighting for the good, fighting for the community, fighting for the earth, fighting for the mothers, the children, for justice. So that's going on. And Nessus represents the healing, the lineage of healing ancestral wounds. Well, what is racism if not an ancestral wound? It is a wound that people of color have been carrying, and it is a wound that white people, the colonizers, the slaveholders, it is a wound that we perpetrated, but we have also carried it. We carry the lineage of it. And in ceremony a long time ago, I recognized that in some mystical, mysterious way, I have been on both sides. Which is not an apology or an excuse for anything that I am carrying in this lifetime and how I was raised and brought up. It just simply gave me an empathy and an insight for the whole thing, and to recognize that I have work to do from both perspectives in my own ancestral lineage. But the strongest work that I have to do coming into this body as a white woman, raised in Jim Crow South, born in 1955. I grew up in a racist milieu, and my parents were racist. They taught me how to be racist. And any changes or decisions I made as an adult, being a liberal adult, couldn't erase what was bred into me. And so there's work to be done around that. So the personal is the political, and what is going on in the world right now. I saw someone post that and I can't even remember who, this is not politics, it's justice, it's social justice, it's equality, and it does have a deep spiritual component to it. So what is going on here? Let's go back to the full moon chart. Hang on. Where is it? So at this moment, this has been applying, and it will still be active as of the new moon. Mars is conjunct Nessus, what else is going on in the, I think Wednesday, in a couple of days, Venus will make her exact conjunction with the sun. And at the moment, this chart of the moment, Venus is speaking to Black Moon Lilith, and she is in a square to Mars and Nessus. And they've just updated the chart of the moment, and Mars has moved even closer to Nessus. Yeah. So we have Venus in a square, and she is retrograding. Tomorrow she will be in an exact square to Nessus and Mars. Mars is actually past Nessus by a minute. This is like giving the play-by-play of the planetary motions. And all of that is playing out on the full moon chart, that Mars Nessus square conjunction is still active, and it is square the full moon, and it is square the sun, and it is square Venus. So what we have is a T-square, and that means, and what's holding the T-square is Mars and Nessus. That's like, that is the point at which things can change. And that is the beauty of what Mars can do for us. Mars will change things. So, Barbie, if you're still listening, you're wanting a job and a place to live, an apartment, and I don't know what your circumstances are, but the thing to ask is, what is my aligned action? What action can I take to shift? What am I, you know, in a sense, there is this is my circumstance. It's not good. I don't like it. What do I need to do to shift it? Because we are never passive or victims in our circumstances. The power to shift things is always within us. So as a society, as the moon is full, and as the sun and Venus are conjunct, and as Vesta moves to the Aries point, the priestess. This is an interesting thing. At the moment of the full moon, asteroid Lilith is at the 1st degree of Capricorn, and Vesta, the priestess, is at the 1st degree of Cancer. So they are holding down those 2 points. They are opposite each other. They are holding down those 2 points of the chart, those 2 cardinal points, also known as the Aries points. So they are activating the entire chart. And what does that mean? Vesta, the priestess, she is the intermediary. She is the one who moves between the worlds. She carries the prayers from the people to divine. She tends the altars. And in our own individual lives, she tends the sacred erotic flame within us. Our altar as women is our womb, and the sacred flame is the erotic fire that is in our wombs. And men also have this. I teach women, and I teach them about the womb. So I tap into that aspect of Vesta. But the erotic fire of men and their inner priest is also activated by Vesta energy. So that is opposite Lilith asteroid, which is the disowned feminine inside of us that we carry. The feminine wound is one way of looking at it. And those are activating the chart. And this full moon, on a personal level, And you can always apply the personal to the bigger picture of the collective. What does this mean for you personally? What is being called up? What is the wound, the feminine wound, that is triggered by all of this that's going on, that is triggered by police brutality, by fear of the virus, fear of violence, fear of the disillusion and chaos in our society, fear of how the powers that be are going to use this. There's a lot to be afraid of. There's also everything that we fear is an opportunity and a point. Thank you. I see Elisheva. I had to leave. Thank you. So with this being triggered, with your priestess and your disowned feminine projecting into each other, there would be a tendency to drop into victim mode. And I can't help but imagine white women, the one in Central Park, any of us, whatever the circumstances are in your life, because our personal lives go on in the midst of what's happening. Our businesses go on, our daily lives, our relationships, our personal problems. We are coping with daily life while we have one eye on the bigger picture and looking at what we can do to make a difference there. And I have always maintained that, and I believe this is a spiritual truth, that when you heal that which is within you, you shift things that are without you. As within, so without, as above, so below. It is, these are spiritual laws that we can live by and we can count on. And so the one thing that we don't want to do is devolve into hand-wringing, accusations, avoidance, fragility, victimhood. No matter where we stand, no matter who we are and what our relationship is to the events going on in the world. I tell you, what we must all stand for is justice, and we have to. I say we have to speak out, put our wallets, our bodies, our words, our voices, our prayers, what else do we have? Our ideas, our empathy, our listening, all of our spiritual gifts, bring them to bear on what cannot be ignored anymore, what has been ignored too long. I happened to be changing planes in Washington, D.C. on the day of Obama's first inauguration. And I had an extraordinary experience. I was in one of those buses that takes you from one terminal to another in the airport to change planes. And I was the first one onto this particular bus. And then a man came on, a black man, wearing an overcoat and a blazer. And on his pocket, I could see the ecclesiastical kind of, I don't know, what do you call it, badge, symbol. And I thought, oh, he looks incredibly familiar. He looks a little like Desmond Tutu. Oh my God, it is. And he sat down opposite me, and He had his entourage with him. He had a couple of people, including a very large bodyguard. And he was ebullient. He had been invited to speak at the, I think it was the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King, his birthday. It was an incredible. He was speaking at the National Cathedral, which was the day before the inauguration. And I said, "Did you go to the inauguration?" He said, "No, I wasn't invited." I'm thinking, how could that be? Oh, well. But I had my picture taken with him, and I thanked him for his work in the world. And I just basked. But what I take away from that is that it was an incredibly wonderful day. This was the man who, along with Nelson Mandela, headed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that, I guess, it healed successfully to a degree the wounds of apartheid. It brought apartheid to its knees. It ended apartheid in South Africa. They worked really hard to deal with racial divides, racial stereotypes, racial enmity, generations of it. And they were successful. And I don't know how things are if you are in South Africa right now, but I know at the time it worked. And he was seeing it as a new opportunity for the United States, known as the most powerful country in the world. And we had elected a black president. We had a black family in the White House. African American. Literally. And, if you've ever seen him speak on, these shows where they bring people in, all of the spiritual leaders to speak. And he's like the Dalai Lama. They speak from this place of joy that bubbles forth from them no matter what's going on. They are grounded, both of them. And I want to call him Grandfather Desmond Tutu. He's the same way. And he was that way that day. He was so joyful, so high. So it was infectious. It was one of the great blessings of my life. And it didn't work. It did not work. But at this full moon conjunct, the full moon is happening conjunct the great attractor and in connection to, it is in that square to Mars and Nessus. And we have many other healer points, goddesses and many other healer points are activated in this full moon. And the moon and Venus, the sun and Venus. Well, the moon is opposite. The moon and the great attractor are opposite the sun and Venus, who are together. And let's see, what else have we got? Mercury. Magdalena. Mercury is in a close connection, communicating with Uranus. Mercury is square Chiron. Magdalena, feminine Christ consciousness, is tapped into Mercury, Albion, Chiron. Opposite Ceres. No, she's not opposite Ceres. Where are you? No, not opposite Ceres. Ceres is in the mix here. Ceres is active. She is making aspects to Mercury, Albion, who is the thresholder. Albion is like a shamanic being who carries people through birth, through death, through sexuality, through the changes of life, the doorways, Albion is the keeper of doorways. And Magdalena is square Albion, and they are connected to Ceres, the earth. So that plus Vesta and Lilith on the Aries point, these are the places where we can heal. We can heal we can do the hard work of healing. We love the word healing. It's like healing makes it all better. Remember when we were little and I hope you got to do this, we would go to Mother and say, kiss it and make it better. And usually that worked really fast. The healing that we're looking at in this time and place is going to hurt us. This is more like skin grafts. This is more like open heart surgery. This is like transplants. We need to transplant a new heart. We need to do the hard work. And this work is 100% on white people. If we don't do our work, there's nothing anyone else can do. They can't make it better for themselves. They shouldn't have to. The people of color, the people descended from slaves, the people descended from the railroad workers, the more recent immigrants who do the work that white people don't want to do. They don't need to do the healing work. They need to do trauma healing. But they're healing within more trauma until we white people do our work. And it's political work, it's spiritual work, it's personal work, it's psychological work, it is humbling work. And I have taken some steps towards this work, and it's shocking to the system. We have to do it, and we have an opportunity. This full moon says, do the work. I think that is what I have to offer. The biggest thing is the square to Mars and Nessus. It's time to take serious action. Because one way of looking at Mars and Nessus, the shadow side, is what we're seeing. The fruits of our past, the fruits of our ancestral wounds are foment, violence, destruction, trauma, re-trauma, onward, 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 never ending, brutality. And the opportunity here always, because Nessus tells us where it stops. Nessus is not a sentence that says, oh, you're fucked. Nessus says, this is where the healing must be done. And Mars is there saying, we can do this. And yes, it will hurt. And yes, it will feel violent. Our psyches, our white psyches, as we do the work, we will feel like violence is being done to us. And we just have to say, this is the skin graft, the transplant, the open heart surgery, the brain surgery. It hurts. And it's necessary because the alternative is death. I'm going to be back to do a womb centering. I'll explain that when I come back. I'm going to take a moment. Thank you for listening. And as always, during the eclipse season, we have a solar eclipse coming up on the solstice, the exact, like a few minutes after the solstice. It's incredible. If you need your own reading, contact me. I'm making a few extra spaces available for the solstice, so I'll let you know how you can get one. It is, yes, we still have to feed our families. We still have to go to work. So I'm letting you know that I'm available to you. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you a blessed full moon. The full moon is also a time of celebration. And celebration is one of the ways that we can heal. It's one of the ways we can tap into our resilience to do the hard work that is necessary. So, blessed full moon and blessed enjoy Venus hanging out with the sun. She's always really potent when she picks up that solar energy. Until next time.